everybody, welcome to Frannie's Square. Today we're going to be making this hat with the homemade Pom Pom, and I'll show you how to make the Pom Pom if you don't have a Pom Pom maker. So before I get started, I just want to say I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We had a great time. All the kids descended upon us. It was a full house. I cooked a ton of food, and they bring all their Tupperware with them and they pack it up and take it with them. So I didn't even have leftovers, but it was all good. It makes me happy to see that they enjoyed the leftovers. So I decided I wanted to make a hat that would go with the scarf that I had recently done a tutorial on. And if you haven't seen this scarf, I'll put a link right here. Go check that out. And I decided I wanted to choose colors from the scarf. I chose 2 of the colors and used the same exact yarn. It's Drops 100% merino wool yarn, and you'll see that in the tutorial. And what I did is, rather than using it single ply, I put 2 balls of yarn together to make a thicker, warmer hat, and I think it came out really nice. And this hat would make a great gift. You can do them very quickly. You could make a scarf and hat set for somebody. It's just a really great project, and you can change up the colors any way you want. I just love it. Now, the way I did the tutorial is I show you how I make the hat, the basics of making the hat. You don't have to use the same yarn. You don't have to use the same size yarn. You don't have to use the same size hook. Because what I'll tell you is, in the beginning, the number of rows of your ribbing matter. It has to be a multiple of 6, but it can be any number to fit your head. And I show you how the band is fitting my head when I decide to close it up. So you can just do the same thing with your band. And as long as you have a multiple of 6 in your ribbing rows, you're good to go. And that's the way I do the project, because we all have different size heads. I'm a petite to average head, and if you just followed what I did, the hat might not fit you well. This way you can make it to fit you or the person you're making it for the way that you like it. Also, then you're not stuck looking for the same yarn. You can just pull something out of your scrap yarn and use that. Before I forget, this is a Jacqueline Smith wig that I just got, and it's going to be in my next affordable wig episode. I got 4 red wigs, and I was very happy with this purchase, so look for that video. Also, if you're enjoying the channel, I'd love it if you'd subscribe if you haven't already, and like the videos that you actually like. That lets me know what you're enjoying so that I can continue to make that kind of content, and it also helps me with the algorithm with YouTube. Okay, so let's get started. Let's make this hat. Okay, so I'm going to be using the Drops Baby Merino that I used for my scarf, and for the sample that I did, I used the Stylecraft DK, which is a 3-weight. It's acrylic, which is not very warm, but I like to use that yarn to just figure out my patterns. So since this is a thinner yarn, it's an A-class yarn. That's how Drops does their yarns. Excuse the beat up hands. That's from my Thanksgiving cooking. I'm a disaster. Anyway, since this is a thinner yarn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap 2 balls together and crochet with 2 of the same thread at once. That'll make it thicker. And it should be nice and warm since this is wool. I'm going to use the lightest color, the color 2, and the darkest color from my scarf, the color 19, together for this hat. So I'm going to go roll 2 balls of each of these together, and I will be back. Okay, so to start the hat, the first thing we're going to start with is the ribbing, and I made it so that I can fold it over. So I'm going to tell you the number of stitches to do to be able to fold it over like this. If you don't want to fold it over, then you can always cut your ribbing in half or make it shorter. Okay, so to start the ribbing, remember I'm using 2 strands of yarn together, but you don't have to do that. You can use whatever yarn you like. I am going to first make my slip knot, and chain 19. Okay, so there we go. Have my 19 chains. Now, in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to go in and do a single crochet. And I'm going to go down the row and do a single crochet in each chain. And when I'm done, I should have 18 stitches. So just keep doing that down to the end of this row. Now, as I said in the intro, the ribbing has to be a multiple of 6 rows. Okay, so this is row 1. You can keep counting your rows from here. I ended up doing 66 rows for my ribbing. But you'll see in the video, when I get to the 66th row, I put it around my head and show you how the ribbing's fitting me. And you can just check yours and decide if that's a good number for you or not. And if not, you'll just make sure you do some multiple of 6 rows. Okay, so every row after this is going to be exactly the same. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Okay, now going back, here's our stitches. You can see the V's. We're going to just work in the back loop only. So we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop only, all the way down. And what this does is it creates your ribbon. By not using the front loop, that front loop will hang out and create the texture of the ribbing. Okay, so you're going to do this all the way down, back loop only. Get in the middle of that V. And this is row 2. So you can keep track of your rows. Now I used a 4.5 crochet hook, 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. Again, I crochet loosely. So even if you were following my pattern, you may want to change up your hook size depending on if you crochet looser or tighter. Luckily, hats are pretty forgiving, so. Okay, when we get to the end, don't forget that last stitch there. That's an easy one to forget. Oh. And don't let your yarn split. There we go. Okay, and now every row is just going to be like that. So for row 3, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and start working in the back loop, going back. And you're going to want to do a multiple of 6 rows. I'm going to do 66 rows, and I will meet you back here. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how I decide if the ribbing is big enough for me. So all I do is I take my ribbing and I put it around my head, and I like it so I have to stretch it just a little bit to close it because I don't want my hat too loose. And so this way, I think that's pretty good. It'll have to stretch to go over my head a little bit. So I did 66 rows of the ribbing. And remember, you want to do a multiple of 6 because that's important for the other stitches that we're doing in this hat. Okay, so now we have the ribbing the length we want it to be. What we're going to do is we're going to close it up. All right, so I'm just going to fold it in half like this. And get my tails out of the way. There we go. Okay, so fold it in half, and all I'm going to do is attach to the first stitch here on the other side and pull it through. And I'm going to go down each stitch. I'm going to grab the stitch in the front and the corresponding stitch in the back and just pull it through and slip stitch. And I'm going to do that all the way down to close this up. So the next stitch, and the next, and just continue to do that, and I will meet you at the end. Okay, so I've gotten to the end here. You can see it's all sewn up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip it inside out because I want that seam to not show, and I'm actually going to be crocheting on the right side. So let me get my yarn behind me there. So now you don't see that seam, it's on the inside there. All right, from this point I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to put a half double crochet in each row. So I want to end up with 66 stitches. I'm going to count this as my first stitch for this row here. So I'm going to go into this row, and I'm going to do a half double crochet in each row. So that'll be my second stitch. And then here is my next row, third, and just make sure you end up with the same number of stitches as the number of rows you made. Go all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of this round. So just keep doing that all the way along. And here I am coming around to my last stitch, my 66th stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch to that first stitch, the top of that first stitch, so the second chain there. I can get my hook in there. There we go. And I'm going to slip stitch that. Okay, so now I have my half double crochets around. I am going to chain 2 again and do the same thing. Another row of half double crochets, and now I'm just going to go into each stitch. This counts as my first and my second, and I'm just going to go all the way around, third, and I will meet you at the end. Okay, just finished my 66th stitch here. I'm going to go into my first chain 2 in the top in the second chain, and we're going to slip stitch that shut. So there we go. We have our half double crochets all the way around. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is add our next color in. So I'm going to use the dark gray from my scarf, and I'm going to roll these 2 together. So I'll be right back. And I just put this over my head just to make sure it's fitting me the way I want it to. You can actually do that before you do these 2 rows. This is fitting me the way I like, so I'm happy with it so far. Okay, at this point I'm going to introduce my next color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my gray through the loop that I have on my hook right now. Okay. And letting the tails hang out of the way here. I'm going to pull these There we go. I'm going to chain 2 for my next row. There we go, and that's going to count as my first stitch. And then I will continue to half double crochet in each stitch around until I have 66 gray stitches. And if you hear that, that is my husband in his go-kart. Having a good time with our son. He's here since Thanksgiving. Okay, so continue doing this all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. And here I am coming around to my 66th half double crochet. There we go. And I'm going to, again, in the second chain, in the beginning chain 2, slip stitch. Okay, now I did not disconnect my other color, and it can get quite tangled, so you can disconnect and reconnect. It's up to you. I kind of just left it because I knew I was coming back to this, but get those tails out of the way. I'm going to keep the gray off to the side here. But behind. I want it behind. Okay, so here I'm going to chain 2 with the cream color because I'm switching again. It's going to count as my first half double crochet for this stitch. So I'm going to do a half double crochet in the next. Okay, so for the next stitch, we're going to yarn over, go into the loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the loop, pull up a loop, that's 2 times, yarn over, go into the loop, pull up a loop, that's 3. I'm going to do this 5 times, that's 4 and 5. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of those, and yarn over and pull through that, and that closes it up and gives me that nice little stitch there. Then in the next 2, I'm going to do a half double crochet again. All right, and in the third one, I'm going to do that same thing. Yarn over, go into the loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, that's once. I'm going to do it again twice, 3 times, 4 times, and 5 times. And then yarn over, pull through all of those. I'm not going to pull them down so that I can get in, then yarn over and pull through to close it off, just like that. That's how we're getting these cute little bubbles going along. And then we're going to half double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So every 3rd stitch, you're going to do this stitch. I don't remember if it's called a popcorn or a cluster stitch. I'm not good at the names of stitches. In any case, I call them little bubbles. So you're going to do that on each 3rd stitch. And keep doing that all the way around, and I will see you back here. Okay, here I am coming around toward the beginning. I just did one of my bubble stitches, so I'm going to do 2 of my half double crochets. And then another one of the bubbles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is anybody else out there getting worse with names of things? I just can't remember. It's crazy. Okay, half double crochet, another, and then I'm at my last stitch, which should be one of the bubble stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and oops, get in there, 5, and close it up. And now I'm going to go into the second chain of my chain 2 in the beginning. And slip stitch. Okay, so now we're going to reattach our other color again. Mine is still attached. If yours isn't, you can just reattach it now. I'm just going to pull my cream so it's a little tighter. And I'm keeping the cream behind the hook, out of the way. And I'm going to chain 2 with the dark gray. And now I'm going to just do half double crochets all the way around. But when I do it, I don't do it into this stitch right above the bubble stitch, you'll see. So I'm going to half double crochet before the bubble, right here. And then right after the bubble, like that. And then in this stitch, okay, and then the before and the after over here. And you'll still end up with the same number of stitches. Because you're going to do one in between them, then one before and one after. Okay, just like that, all the way around. And this is what it will look like. Very pretty, right? Okay, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I'm coming around to the beginning. This was my stitch before the bubble. And my stitch after. It's right here. And then I will into the second chain, which is kind of hard to see here. Slip stitch. There we go. And there we have it. So there's that round. Okay, so I detached my cream color. It was just getting too tangled for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reattach it here. Pull this tighter. I'm going to also detach the gray here because I'm not going to use it for a few rows. And I'm going to chain 2. Pull that tighter. And now I'm going to half double crochet all the way around for 3 rows. So just like we did before, I'll go to that next stitch, half double crochet, and just do that all the way around. Slip stitch when I get back to the beginning into the second chain of the chain 2. And then do that for 2 more rounds. So I'm going to do a total of 3 rounds of half double crochets, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I finished my 3 rounds of half double crochets in the cream color. Now I'm going to reattach my gray. There we go, just tighten this. And I'll probably leave my cream attached because I'm only going to do 1 round of the gray. So I'm going to do 2 chains and then continue around with half double crochets. And I will weave in all of my ends at the end. So I have quite a few to weave in. You can do it as you go, but just like that, take your other color and go around and do a half double crochet in each stitch and slip stitch at the end, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so that is your round of half double crochets with your other color. Now we're going to alternate each round until we have 3 rounds of this darker color. So I'm going to do a cream round, a dark gray round, a cream round, and a dark gray round. So 4 more rounds alternating colors so that I'll have 3 dark gray stripes, all half double crochet. So I will add my cream color back in here, chain 2, And I'll move the gray out of the way. There we go. Get that gray out of the way there, behind. And then I'm just going to go around and do half double crochets with the cream color, a round of that, then a round of the dark gray, then another round of the cream, and then another round of the dark gray. So you'll have 3 dark stripes, or if you're using your colors in a different way, you'll have 3 stripes of whatever this second color is. Okay, so keep alternating, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so this is what the hat looks like so far. Now, I tried it on, and this is pretty much starting to come to the top of my head. So at this point, I'm going to continue around with the dark gray color, because I want the top to be gray with the cream pom-pom on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 more rounds of the gray at 66 stitches, and then I'm going to start to decrease. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 more rounds of the dark gray. You decide if you are also almost at the top of your head and you're ready to start this process. If not, you could make more stripes, or you could do another section of 3 rounds of your lighter color before starting the top in the darker color. I'm going to start the top right now by doing 2 rounds of 66 stitches in this darker color, half double crochets all the way around, slip stitching together at the end of each round. So I'll meet you back here after that. Okay, so I'm coming down around to the end of the second round of this color. I'm just going to slip stitch in the second chain of my chain 2, and now we're going to start decreasing. So this is what my hat's looking like. You can see this is the seam where I've slip stitched all the way up every time I came around, and this is what the hat's looking like. Nice and pretty. And I will be folding my folding the trim up like that when I wear it. So you can check this on your head. So I like to check mine on my head. You can see here I have this folded up, and I don't know if you can see how much above my head that is. I'm going to start to close this up pretty quickly. I like to have it a little bit bigger, kind of like a loose hat hanging off. You can start your decreasing sooner or at the point that I'm starting it, but this is where I like my hat to be as I start to decrease. Okay, so I'm going to start my decreasing rounds. As you can see, I still have to sew in all my ends, but I'll get to that. All right, so for this round, I'm going to chain 2 like I always do for my first double crochet. Then I'm going to half double crochet in the next stitch. There we go. And then I'm going to turn these next 2 stitches into 1 stitch by decreasing. So I'm going to go into the first stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. And that'll turn those 2 stitches into 1. Then half double crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch, and then I'm going to decrease and then turn these next 2 stitches into 1 stitch. Just stick my hook through the stitch, pull up a loop, through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. And that turns it into 1 stitch. And I'm going to do that all the way around, doing 2 half double crochets and then a decrease. So here's the second, and then a decrease. Just like that. So keep doing that all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I just did my last decrease in that round. I'll slip stitch to the second chain of the chain 2 at the beginning of the round. Now from here on out, we're going to do a decrease every other stitch. We're going to do single crochets, and we're not going to stop to slip stitch at the end of the round. We're just going to keep going round and round till it gets small enough for us to sew the top together. So here I'm just going to chain 1, And now starting in my first stitch here, I'm going to single crochet, and then I'm going to decrease. So go in, pull up a loop, go into the next one, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three, just like that. Then I'll single crochet. Then I'll decrease. Go in, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. And I'm going to just do that all the way around. A single crochet and then a decrease. I like the single crochets at the top. Keeps the top of my head warm. And it goes fast, just like this. And keep doing this until it gets, your hole gets smaller and smaller to the point where we can sew it up. And I'll be back to show you that step. So if you want to watch ahead first before you do it, oops, I really can't talk and do this at the same time, then just watch this first as I come back, and you'll see, and then you can move on to that step yourself. All right. I'll see you back here. Okay, so as you've noticed, if you're doing this along with me, it's getting smaller pretty quickly, and I like how it creates this kind of puckered look here. So I'm still doing my single crochet and then my decrease, alternating. It's getting smaller and smaller. I just wanted you to see what it's looking like. I'll do a few more stitches and then I'm just going to sew it together. I love how quickly it comes together at the end. I think I'm going to do one more little round and call it a day. Now you can see it's a tiny little hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fasten off the tail long enough to use for sewing. There we go. There we go. Okay, I'll get my yarn needle and I will take my end and you might, before you cut your tail off, want to just try it on, make sure it's okay for you. I'm going to stick my yarn needle through the hole in the center and turn it inside out because I'm going to sew it on the wrong side, like that. Boy, do I have a lot of tails to sew in. Okay, so here I am on the wrong side, and all I'm going to do is go in and out of the stitches, tightening them up. But you can't even see the hole already, huh? There we go. I just like to make sure that it's nice and tight. And then I'll go back and forth. And this is where I'm going to put my pom pom. So my sewing isn't actually even going to show. And I find if I have a little bit of a nub, it's easier to attach the pom pom. So it's all good. I may overdo it in the sewing, but I like to know that it's going to stay secure. Let me check the other side, see how it's looking. Yeah, looking good. And you see the cute little, the way it puckers up at the top. I love that, especially with a pom-pom. So now I'm going to just fasten off and sew in all of my ends, and I'll meet you back here. Oops. I'll do that and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so here's my hat, all my ends tied in. I have a piece of yarn there. I am just loving this. I think this is adorable. So now it's time to make the pom-pom. And I'm going to do the pom-pom in a lighter color. I could do it in a darker color as well, but I think I like it better lighter. So I cannot find my pom-pom maker, so I'm just going to make one using what I have, which is my hand. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to keep my fingers separated like this. I like to make it as wide as possible and not wrap too tightly. Now the more yarn you wrap around, you can use a book, you can use an iPhone. I've seen many methods you can look up on YouTube. I just use my hand because it's always with me. So I'm just going to go like this and wrap around probably the rest of the ball of yarn because I want it as thick as possible. And I won't bore you and do this on camera. I'll do it off camera and I'll meet you back here when I'm all wrapped up. Okay, I didn't end up using the full ball of yarn. This is getting pretty thick here and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off, leaving a long strand like that. And I want to take it through the inside of this because I just want to make sure that it stays secure and together. Actually, you know what? I think I'll do it with my yarn needle. That'll probably be easier. Let me just put this on my yarn needle like this. There we go. And I'm going to just weave it through, being careful not to poke myself. There we go. Like that. Okay. And coming through again. I want to, there we go. All right, and again. Trying to make sure these are staying around my fingers here. Some of them are pulling off. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this and wrap it around the center, making an 8. It's going to be a pretty small pom-pom. That's okay. The bigger the object you use, the bigger your pom-pom. Okay, now I'm just going to tie a knot. All right, so now I have it tied up, but I'm going to take another piece, a separate piece, and tie around it and knot it. trying to make sure I keep the 8 so I can get through there to cut. There we go. And I'll leave that long. Now, I'm going to cut through the 8 here, through the top, like this. And making sure to get any loops that haven't been cut on the inside. There we go. Do the same thing on the other side. Gonna like that. There we go. Make sure you get all the loops. All right. And this is my Pom Pom, and now all I'm going to do is I'm going to use these to sew the Pom Pom to the hat, but other than that, I'm going to just trim it, you know, make my Pom Pom hairs, give it a little haircut, all pretty much the same length. I don't mind a messy Pom Pom, but, you know, however you want to do that to make your Pom Pom. Okay, so now I will just take the long thread that I used. I actually have 2 here. I'm just going to tie them together. That I used to tie them together to begin with. There we go. And I'm going to attach that to my yarn needle. And now to sew my Pom Pom into my hat, I'm just going to go through the center of the top where I want the Pom Pom to be. I have the yarn attached to my needle. Pull it through the other side. And I can see there what it's going to look like. Adorable. And then just sew it in on this side and make sure it's secure and tie it off. And that is it. I like to make sure the Pom Pom's on pretty tight because otherwise it flops around a lot, so. Let's see. Yeah, so like that. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below or send them to my email address at franniesquare@gmail.com, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. Also, if you're making this hat and the scarf or really any other project, feel free to send me pictures and descriptions of your projects so that I can put them in the next episode of Crochet and Tell. I love seeing all of your projects. We have so many creative people in this community. Okay, as always, thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. Remember to make it your own, and I'll see you soon.